everybody. I figured out how to delete all the content off of this video camera, which is literally so hilarious because it is, I wish I could show you the camera that I'm recording off of. It's literally one that my mom used to use when she would film like full soccer games, full swim meets, full vacations, hours and hours and hours, hundreds of thousands of millions of hours of footage, like it has like the handle, because actual podcast equipment is super expensive. This was like $120 off Amazon. So I was like, no problem. But that's like why it's kind of grainy, but I kind of love it. So it's giving like very Emma Chamberlain vibes, which I love her. But I realized that it has such limited memory, which I don't know what the heck we were doing before. I don't know what the heck. My mom must have somehow figured out how to offload her untech savviness. Somehow must have had millions and millions of gigabytes of data and storage on this camcorder. That's literally what it is. It's a camcorder. Or she somehow would go back home and like take it off and put it into the massive hard drives we had throughout the house. I don't know. But it only could take so much footage, so I realized I had to delete some in order to keep recording. But we're back. I deleted all the footage. It's okay. It's somewhere in the cloud ether. And we're feeling a lot better this week. I think I'm finally officially caught up with myself and being a real human. Okay, now it's recording. I was just paranoid. But I feel like I've officially caught up with myself. It was a 2-week sprint. I don't know what happened. I lost control of my brain and my body and was just operating at a level that just was hard to sustain, which inspired then the idea for this podcast, which is the pros and cons to being an extremely type A human being. And I think when people hear the word that you're type A or that you're categorized as labeled as such, it can be a little intimidating because, like type A, I think typically can have pretty negative connotation. People think you're really uptight, you're really particular, you're really judgmental. And it does have those things, to be honest, but there's also a lot of really good things about being a type A person. But I've never actually heard somebody like talk through them being one and the positives and the negatives to such. So I wrote out some thoughts of some things that I noticed about being a type A person, the positive and then the negative consequence of that, like variable A and variable B, which like the way I'm already explaining this is so type A. But I wanted to just preface that I think I was in denial of a lot of things in my life and like probably still am about other things in my life that I'll come to a realization on as I get older. One being that I never really thought I was truly type A because, again, I thought that a type A person was like extremely uptight, and I'm not an uptight person. I'm just very particular and I like to be in control of things. But being in control of things, in my opinion, means that you're likely type A, along with a lot of other things that I'll walk you through. And then also with being extremely type A can come with like OCD habits, and those may be completely unrelated, but I like surely have OCD, and I still have yet to like go seek like true psychiatry and help, because although it does like truly impact my life, not my day-to-day life per se, because I'm not like having to get up and wiggle doorknobs and like click lights on and off, like that type of OCD, but it's more like compulsive thoughts about things that I need to do and obsessions over to-do lists, and that like productivity, like obsessed with productivity, thrives off of it, feels purposeful because of it, which is just not healthy long term. But that also feeds into my type A personality. And I do things along with my type A personality that then feeds and rewards the OCD habits and the controlling habits. So we'll unpack it a bit further, but just wanted to preface all of that, and in hopes that maybe one of you guys relates to me and maybe either knowing that you do have these types of tendencies and feeling less alone, or maybe recognizing some in you. And I am not a certified person to be diagnosing you. I have not even been formally diagnosed with OCD. Type A is not even a diagnosis, but please don't take everything I say with a grain of salt. This is just coming from my almost 26 years of experience. Because by the time you listen to this, I will still be 25. Anyways, let's get into it. So, pros and cons of being type A. Number 1, we get shit done, but tend to get overwhelmed easily. Yes. I literally wrote all of these and I'm like, yes. I can get so much done in work, in personal life. You tell me you need me somewhere with something or to execute on something, it will get done. And mind you, most of the time my personality is I want to get ahead of anything that I'm going to be asked of. So sometimes when I am asked things, I'm like, come on. I was just about to get to that. Or like, come on, like that's so unnecessary. Normally in my head, I'm already categorizing all of the things and all of its importance because for some reason I think I have the best executive ideas about what is most important and what isn't. So when maybe my manager asks me to do something, I'm either like, not to their face, but like, a little bit behind their back, like, why is that so important? Or like, God, like I was just about to do that. Basically, I hate being told what to do because I like being so proactive. So initially when I'm asked to do things, I can get a little bit overwhelmed because I'm like, I already have so much on my to-do list for me personally and professionally that I decided I needed to do, that like now you're going to ask me to do something, do my job. And so I get a little bit overwhelmed. Same with like personally. I can get all my tax forms together. I can plan the friend reunion trip. I can coordinate my sisters to find a date when we're all going to go to Vegas and hang out together. I can help orchestrate whatever, gift baskets for so-and-so, but I can very easily overwhelm myself because I can get super addicted to the high of being super productive and doing things, and say someone's like the amount of mindfuckery that goes on in my head when somebody's like, oh my gosh, yes, send me that link. I'm like, where do I jot this down? Gotta send her the link. Walking home, gotta send her the link. Phone dies. Oh my God, gotta send her the link. Get home. Gotta send her the link. Like I get obsessive. Like I have to follow through with things or else nothing bad happens. Like literally that's what I have to tell myself. I'm like, literally this isn't going to change the world. And she doesn't even care if I don't send her the link. If it really was that important, she would follow up with me. But I get really overwhelmed. I overwhelm myself with needing to execute and do things. And then also a con of that as well is, although I'm so hyper productive in my work life and I get so much done and I work harder than even the smartest person at the company, I don't know if that's true, is I kind of miss the details and miss the minutia of maybe some grammatical errors in an email, which like, to be honest, I don't really care. Like they're not noticeable. And we have ChatGPT these days, which is like refining and grammatically correcting all of our things. So I don't really know where these errors are showing up, but like I do miss some things. I'm not super detail oriented. I'm more like just get it done. Because again, I thrive off of productivity and feeling like I'm moving forward. I think a great analogy for this is I'd rather, instead of being stuck in traffic, I'd rather be taking all these back roads that could potentially even take longer than just sitting in the traffic and moving slower because I need to be in motion. Like I always tell myself, a body in motion stays in motion, aka you need to keep being productive. You can't stop. But that comes with a lot of overwhelming feelings of all of a sudden you're like, your shoulder starts tingling because like you have really high cortisol levels, like you're having trouble falling asleep at night. Me, these last 2 weeks, like you are feeling like really scatterbrained and that you're like forgetting things and then getting overwhelmed that you're forgetting things because you never forget things and forgetting things really bothers you, all leading to sensations of extreme overwhelmingness. That's not fun. But we get a lot of things done. And my dad always says that if you want something done, give it to a busy person. And that could not be more true. You're going to overwhelm the fuck out of us, but we will get it done for you. And for me personally, it might not be perfect, but it'll be like 95% perfect and it'll be done. So I'm a great person to have on a group project, and please don't ask me to do things unless like I'm very like caught up to speed about what it is I need to do, because this is an invitation to like help you. Not that you guys are gonna like, but you know what I mean. Second line, we plan lots of things, but perfectionism can get in the way. This falls more in line with my personal type A-ness. I love being a planner. But part of me also gets pissed because I'm like, I'm the one planning all these fucking things. But like, I do it best. And I know if I like let go of the reins and let somebody else try to plan something, it's just not going to be as good as I think it is. So I prefer to plan. But I'm the type of person, and people might object to this, and I see threads on TikToks that people are like, what do people do to like get themselves through the week? Like, I feel like I live for the weekends. I fully live for the weekends. Come Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, mostly like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, because Sunday is like kind of scary. And like sometimes I work most Sundays. I am living for the weekend. And by that, I mean, in New York City, New York City fuels my type A-ness. You need to be so on top of the reservations you're booking, on the clubs you're going to, getting your name on the list, on the outfits you're wearing, you need to be an executor to actually have fun in New York, in my opinion, because you need to have reservations everywhere. Say you have a group bigger than 4. You're fucked. You can't walk in anywhere. Maybe you can walk in some areas, but like, especially as it's kind of starting to get warmer, watch it get so cold next week. People are coming out of hibernation. They are out and about, and before you know it, that bar that you would go to during the winter is slammed, like shoulder to shoulder. So I also am in a city where I'm rewarded by being super type A, but back to living for the weekend is because I put so much pressure on the weekend to like have fun. And like, honestly, don't get me wrong, like some weekends I'm like, nope, not doing anything. Dylan and I are just relaxing, or like Dylan will be out of town and I'm like, no, I'm like fully catching up on all the reality TV I've missed. I will not have FOMO because that's something that I've outgrown a little bit more. I still get it, but like not as much. But I think I don't get it because I also am in such control of all the social situations I'm having because I'm planning them, that I'm like, if I'm not there and planning something, nobody's doing anything. So that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But I like to live for the weekends, and I like to make sure that I do have outlets to have fun, and whether that's like drinking or whether that's simply purely even during the week coordinating all of my workouts. For example, talk about rewarding good type A personality and behaviors. My workout studio that I joined, the practice room, is literally gets booked up every 2 weeks. 2 weeks in advance, fully booked, every class, fully full. So you bet your bottom dollar that you want to get the most of your unlimited membership, you need to be booking every single day 2 weeks out. I go on the app every single day and book myself in for 2 weeks out. Are you kidding me? In what other city do you ever have to do this? I literally see people walk up and get up in the elevator to the front desk at the studio and physically get angry because they haven't gotten off the wait list in weeks. Granted, they're coming from like ClassPass and Gym Pass is like this corporate fitness membership where you can get it through your work. But you need to be so on top of it. But that's how I also my type A personality can positively impact my personal life, because during the week, I know that I have all my workouts scheduled. And like, but again, talk about getting overwhelmed and perfectionism. I will get really upset if I maybe miss the booking window for my workout class 2 weeks prior, or accidentally book the wrong session that I'm charged $30. Like, I get so angry about that because I'm like, how could you miss that, Faith? Like, what is wrong? Like, how could you miss that? That is so stupid. And then I can turn on to the organizations and be like, why would you, like, you know that I never go at a 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, like, can you just forgive this one thing? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, this makes no sense. Like, why can't you just do a favor for one of your most loyal consumers and loyal people that comes to your studio and talks so highly about it, brings guests? And then I can start to spiral because I'm like, then I try to logic tries to interfere with my type A personality and also ego, and being like, there's no way I could be this stupid. And if I am this stupid, I need to not make somebody else feel stupid, but like I need to make the situation seem stupid so I can get what I want, or like somehow get what I want. I have no idea if that made sense. But during the week, my type A personality and planning my workouts is completely fueled by the way that New York approaches fitness. And then on the weekends, I am planning sometimes upwards of like 2 months in advance. If it's a trip, 6 months, like no problem. My girlfriends and I just planned Hamptons. Granted, I didn't plan this one because I had tried to plan it 2 months ago and literally none of the Airbnbs were open, because the Hamptons is honestly a huge ripoff. Like, it's good to go once, but like if you don't have a group of friends that you're going with, you will spend buckets and buckets of money. And the first time you go, you'll be like, this is like great, like so worth it. Like, you'll be like, wow, I like literally spent like 2 paychecks, but that's fine. But the second time you go, you're like, been here, done that. I'd rather go to Nantucket, rather go to Martha's Vineyard, rather go to Cape Cod. But because I have this group of friends that this will be our 3rd annual time going, it makes it much more fun. But I had tried to plan it 2 months ago, and Airbnb was just not ready for Faith. So I kind of gave up, and I was like, okay, we're just not going to go. Like, that's fine. If it doesn't get planned now, it's not going to get planned. I was wrong, because it totally got planned. And I was the last to subscribe. But typically for trips, I'm the one that's like putting together the Airbnb lists. I'm putting together itineraries. I'm putting maybe if we have to fly, like what flights we should take, like the hotels we should stay at. Like, literally, that's why it's so hard for me to take vacations, because it literally has to be perfect. When I was talking to one of my buddies, Chris, who's living in Europe, and we were talking about, I'm like, I really want to come to Spain and visit you in Madrid and go to Barcelona, Mallorca. And he's like, no, I think we should do south of France. And I'm like, okay, great. And then I was thinking to myself, I'm like, well, Faith, I need to plan this trip. Like, no offense, but like, Dylan's awesome, but like, he's not going to plan shit. So I was like, okay, I need to plan this. And the only reason we were able to go to Croatia 2 summers ago now, because last summer we spent our vacation budget on moving, was to go to Croatia because my work like paid for it and sponsored it, and I had a travel agent that booked it for me. But even still, I was super involved in the planning process. But I had someone that was physically booking and planning. I don't want to have to pay somebody to book for me. Like, that was a complimentary service that was included. I don't want to have to pay someone to book anything, because that's already letting go of control, and like, that's already giving me something to blame if something doesn't go right. And I hate paying for services as is. I like doing things on my own. That's another bullet point. Probably should add that in there. But the reason should add it in the list. But the reason why, when I was talking to Chris, I was like, no, Chris, like, you don't understand. Like, I'm literally going to have to make Excel sheets on Excel sheets comparing Hotel A to Hotel G, the differences between the two, to find the most perfect one that's the most perfect price, that's the best value. Like, I get obsessed with finding things, and I like go down rabbit holes, and then I end up being super productive in vacation planning, and then like lacking in my actual work performance and like whatever, seeing my friends. Like, I literally get so locked in, and my perfectionism really gets in the way, because I want us to have the best trip ever, and I want to know that I did the most research possible. But realistically, we just don't have time for that, and you have to settle your type A-ness a little bit and just be like, you know what, maybe there could have been a better way that I could do this, but like, based on the resources I gathered, and Chris just said to look at all the Amex, like highly requested or best reviewed, but sometimes those can easily become taboo, because then everybody looks at them, everybody goes. But just letting go of like, okay, yeah, maybe there was a better hotel or better restaurant to go to or whatnot, or better activity to do, or maybe we did an activity and we're like, that was so not worth it. Like, you're always going to get something wrong. So just understanding and accepting that there's always going to be some parts, hopefully less than there are great, of your vacation that you're like, didn't need to do this, or like, that was a flop, or like, we could have done that better. And then you learn, and then hopefully you can shed that wisdom on another person that's wanting to go there. I will say Croatia was fantastic. There's probably like 2 things I wouldn't have done when I went. It was beautiful. It was unbelievable. Like, Croatia's fantastic. And then I went to Greece with my mom after. And again, it's like a few things I wouldn't do similar. Like, I wouldn't need to go to Milos. Like, some of the islands, they all look alike. So I think being more strategic on going to islands that are all really close to each other and just knocking those out versus like having to travel. Like Santorini obviously is one you have to go to, and that was amazing. But my perfectionism can truly get in the way of planning things, and that same goes for friend meetups. Like literally, like I cracked myself up 2 weeks ago, or not 2 weeks ago, like a month ago. My friends and I really wanted to go to this restaurant, Hillstone. It's a part of Hillstone Restaurant Group. It's really not that amazing, and they have like a horrible reputation actually in New York and in LA and areas. Like they have like reputations of like not being nice to like autistic children and like horrible things. Anyways, this one in Gramercy in New York has popped off all of a sudden. I remember when I moved here 3 years ago, it was probably because it was the end, kind of mid to end of COVID, but you could get a reservation, you could walk in. Now, not a shot. So we were like, we really want to go, we really want to get mega martinis and just sit down and yap and gossip and have a good time. So I had coordinated, I booked a reservation, or no, I couldn't get a reservation. Like literally, I would literally stay up till midnight a month prior when they would say, couldn't get a hold of them on the phone. And like when this happens, I make sure I tell them when I come to their restaurant. And if I do ever get a reservation, or if I'm trying to walk in, I'm like, by the way, how do you get a reservation? I let them tell me how. And I'm like, yeah, I did all of that. You guys don't pick up your phone. You don't answer your email. I don't understand how these people are getting reservations. Granted, I say sometimes, most of the time in a nicer way, but sometimes I'm pissed and I'm like, this is like ridiculous. If you want people to come to your restaurant, like clearly you don't have a problem with that, but like you need to make it slightly more accessible. And like for someone like me, again, type A, I'm like, hello, I'm trying. Help me. Like you don't even answer your phone. What are you doing? And these people, when I said that to them after the fact, which I'll get back to, they were like, oh, like we're busy. Like I'm talking to you. So like I can't pick up the phone. Like you hear it ringing. And I'm like, yeah, I called every day for a week straight. At like 3 o'clock, at like 2 o'clock, at lunchtime when nobody's here. Like it's 5 o'clock, it's happy hour on a Friday. Like people clock off early in New York. They're just having a good time. But I had planned for, because in New York you have to have plan A, but if plan A is not completely signed and sealed, aka you have to walk in or hoping for a reservation, then you have a plan B and a plan C. So our plan A was meet at Hillstone. I was going to get there at 4:30 on a Friday, which I had planned my whole week to be able to sign off at 3:30 so I could walk there. Like it starts at Monday. If I hadn't done the things I'd done on Monday, I probably would have had more work on Friday come 3:30 and wouldn't have been able to walk to Hillstone. My whole weekend would be fucked. So I planned on Monday, and come Friday was walk to Hillstone. We got there, already packed. Literally already packed, every table full. I go to the hostess and I'm like, hey, couldn't get a reservation, did that whole spiel. I'm like, okay, can I sit at the bar with my friends? She's like, it's only for 2 people. You can only have a party of 2. I'm like, okay, what about those high tops where there's like 4 or 6 people? She goes, we don't manage those. It's in your restaurant. What do you mean you don't manage those? What? I'm like, I looked at it, I was like, so does some guy just come out from the back and like lead you to your table? Who manages them? And she's like, they're like first come first serve. I'm like, what? Literally, who says this shit? This is ridiculous. This is so New York. And my type A was like tingling. And so I'm like, okay. So then I'm like hovering over these tables with a few other people, and we're just like watching like a hawk all these tables. My friends all running late, all of them. And I'm like, they're so lucky to have a friend like me. That's just so on top of it. That's already here. Like, I wish I had a friend like me. I always tell myself that. That's so conceited. But I think I will always be that friend for people, which is totally fine. And I'm waiting in for the table. I waited 45 minutes. My friends were ungodly late. Got the table. Meanwhile, I had a backup reservation. So I got there at 4:30. I had a backup reservation at another restaurant that was like 2 blocks away. Did my research at 5. And I had waited 45 minutes. It was already 5:15. And I was like, no problem. I'm going to call the restaurant. Like, I don't think I put my card down. They're going to like let me go. I'll just like make an excuse. So I called them. Couldn't get a hold of them. I was like getting a little nervous because I was like, I did put my card down. It was on Resi. Called them again. They're like, oh, sorry. Like, you're going to have to come or else we'll charge $50 per person. I'm like, $50 per person? That's the worst cancellation fee I've heard in all of New York. And you guys are like a kind of no-name restaurant. Call my friends up. I'm like, we got to scratch Hillstone. We got to go here. So we all scratched. And at this point, they had not even left. So it was no problem switching to a new restaurant that was only a few blocks away. Meanwhile, I am fucking running from Hillstone, like the 8 blocks in between Hillstone and this other restaurant. My plans had completely backfired against me, but also my friends were extremely late. But regardless, it wouldn't have mattered. It honestly made it better because we had to go to option B anyways. And then from option B, because I knew we would finish drinks and dinner up at like 8, I was like, well, we're going to want to go somewhere else. So I literally coordinated a perfect jump on the subway and go down because it's freezing cold. And I hate Ubering. I get so nauseous and I just think it's a waste of money. And we can't walk. So the 6 literally took us directly down to this other bar called the Crosby Bar in a hotel lobby where we had more drinks and met up with some of their boyfriends and like had a great time. And I had planned that evening so fucking perfectly besides the beginning, but I got a backup, no problem. But my perfectionism gets in the way because I'm like, I just think things through too much and too realistically. Moving on. Number 3, we take really good care of ourselves, but tend to get bored quite quickly and easily. I would have to say type A people are probably very aware of their wanting to be in the best like mental and physical state possible, or at least higher than average, because you need to be in such a high operating mode at all times to execute and perform how you do every day, that like you need to be healthy and you need to be mentally clear and you need to get sleep, you need to work out, you need to eat healthy, like do everything that any regular person should do. But you recognize when you're not operating at a high level, and you know what you need to do in order to, and you know how good you feel when you are operating at such a high level and able to execute your type A-ness. But with that is you can become very obsessive over things. Why am I saying you? Me. I become very obsessive over things. Obsessive over doing my workouts every single day, obsessive over previously going to New York Pilates every single day, and just obsessing over food. I get like obsessed with these certain foods. Like right now I'm like obsessed with doing my hot sculpt and hot Pilates and then coming home and making a smoothie, like literally obsessed, doing it every single day. But that leads to just like fatigue and just your body and your mind just being uninterested in things, because you can only do so much in repetition and pattern for so long until you're like, what am I doing here? Like, what's going on? I don't understand. And you get really bored of things. And because I move at such a fast clip, is I'm always trying to look for kind of the next best thing. Like as I'm doing my workouts in my unlimited package monthly, I'm still scoping out like, okay, we have Tracy Anderson down the block, we have Soto method. I'm going to try that here because I know when I get bored of practice room, when I get bored of walking 25 minutes to and from, when I get bored of the heat of the classes, when I get bored of maybe they change an instructor, like I'm very quick to be like, I'm out of here. Nope, not worth my money. I'm gone. See ya. I need a backup. But I find that, yeah, just with type A-ness and need to be in control and need to be in control of your environment is when you do like something, you lock in, I become obsessive, and then I get bored of it and I burn out really easily. So pros and cons, but I do take really good care of myself and I'm very aware of when I'm not. Number 4, we are highly motivated, but it can lead to burnout and realization of not having fun. This is something I've mostly learned in my corporate life, specifically being in sales in general. It's a very volatile career and it's very performance oriented and it's very much what you put in, you get out. There is huge factors and elements of luck and that type of spirit, but for the most part, it truly is a great work ethic, is rewarded massively. But you can really get caught up in your work and forget that this is voluntary. Like, yeah, we need to work, to provide for ourselves and pay our rent, but like there's many ways you can make money. You are choosing to have this job. You are choosing to work for this one company of hundreds of millions in this world. You are choosing to sell the software that is entirely made up. Yes, it's very useful and vital to businesses, but it's entirely made up. You're not necessarily saving the world, so it's like you can't really justify that. So you need to bring yourself back to earth and try to have fun with this. I take the example of this one deal I had lost when I had first joined my company, And I'm not a super experienced seller, but I'm experienced enough at this point. But when I got this deal, I was not very experienced. I was very new to the sales processes at this company. The technology is extremely technical. I'm selling to developers and engineers. The people who don't brush their teeth is what my dad says, and it cracks me up. But no offense if you're an engineer or developer. Hopefully you brush your teeth. But I essentially ended up, I lost the deal because I was a chicken with my head cut off. The way that the deal came in was very specific. They had their list of requirements of features that they needed. We were misled. They told us that they were evaluating another vendor that was not the vendor that they were evaluating, just like weird things. And I also just didn't know how to execute a sales process for like a deal this size, and didn't know how to regain control of the evaluation. So I lost it. And that effed what's called my pipeline for the following few quarters, because I had spent all my time on that deal because it required so much of my attention that I lacked growing my pipeline and other deals that I could have used to backfill, which made the loss even more painful. And I was super hard on myself because I was like, but it needed to happen, and it needed to happen early for me, because it made me realize that none of this is that deep. I shouldn't be getting this bothered by these things. Like, life resumes in all elements, and that is a really hard thing to grasp. And I think the older you get, and honestly the more challenging things you endure in life, you do realize that life truly goes on. And I talked about this in my previous podcast, but grounding yourself in the fact that stupid things are going to happen to you. You're going to lose massive $1 million deals. You're going to break up with your long-term partner. You're going to get cheated on by your long-term partner. You're going to break your leg in a super embarrassing ski accident. Like, stupid fucking things are going to happen that are completely out of your control. You just have to realize that nothing is truly that deep. Like, in a year's or a few months' time, you will potentially forget that thing happened, or potentially realize that you're so embarrassed by how you behaved during that time and couldn't see past it, that now that you're past it, you're like, I was so out of control and ridiculous. And that's kind of how I felt when I lost that deal. I didn't bring other people into it, but like, Dylan witnessed a lot of my episodes when I would break down, and I was like, what have I done? I don't know if I'm a good fit here. Like, I just lost this deal. I think I'm going to be fired. Like, normal sales and account executive insecurities, but it was like devastating. And I was like, this should not be this devastating. Like, I need to figure out how to mediate this. Do everything in my power to protect myself from losing deals by having backfills, continuing to build my pipeline while I'm working deals, and also just realize that sometimes at the end of the day, you're going to put your best foot forward and do all your best work, and you're still not going to get the outcome you want. And that is just the way it is. And you move on, because in a few months' time, you will forget how you felt in this moment, or you won't forget, but you'll be better because of it. And that's a huge thing that helps me have more fun, and not burn out in certain situations. Because when you are conscious of either not having fun or having fun, you naturally are just more in tune with your emotional state and emotional threshold of burnout. And sometimes burnout comes for type A people without even trying. Like, I got severely burnt out by athletics because I had poured my heart and soul into swimming for so many years. And it took me a lot more work than it took somebody that was a bit more talented in swimming. Like, I really had to give it my all in my mental state. Like, I would get so in my head during swim meets that I never really could figure out because my type A-ness just got in the way. Like, I wanted to be in control of all the situations, but I knew going in, I would never be in control, but I just couldn't physically let go. And it was the best meets I would have that had the least expectations attached to it. And that's when I was like, yeah, you really need to, there's clearly a disconnect between performance and anxiety. Like, I just had insane performance anxiety, and it was all mental. But I always felt that I needed to work a lot harder than my peers in athletics to be as good as them. And that meant putting a significant amount of pressure on myself that just was not necessary. Like, I wasn't changing the world. I wasn't going to be an Olympic athlete. I realized that when I went to college. I was like, this is just like really unrealistic, and I don't know why I ever thought this way. Like, I love you, Mom, but she like oftentimes had no idea what was going on. So of course I was like, yeah, she thinks I'm going to be an Olympic athlete. I am going to be one. But I got severely burnt out like come year 2 of college, because I was like, I am giving everything to this program and I'm not getting good positive reinforcement and feedback back. Like, this is so illuminating to me that this is just not, there's so much more out there for me. And I burnt out, but honestly, it was just like time for closure. Like, I went into school thinking I was going to swim all 4 years. And when I came to the realization that that was just not going to happen unless I wanted to sacrifice like my mental health and my happiness, it was like kind of shocking. I was like, whoa, Faith, like, you are such an executor. You are such a follow through person. Like, this is kind of crazy. But I felt a sense of rebellion inside of myself that has never left me. And I'm so grateful for that, because you can rebel against yourself. And especially for type A people, you need to have that sense of rebellion, because sometimes you just need to say, shut the fuck up, Faith. Fuck off. I don't want to fucking do this. I'm done. And we're going to go do something else. And we're going to have way more fun. And we're going to find more interesting things we like about ourselves. And we're going to keep moving on. And we're going to gather more life experiences. And that's exactly what I did when I faced that burnout with swimming. So it had a great outcome. Okay, number 5. This is a bit more like materialistic, but it does come with like high performers. We sometimes can make a lot more money, but constantly are obsessed with the next best thing and comparison. And I put money here because, I'm in sales. Like, option 1 equals option 2 if there's, what am I trying to say? I'm in sales. The more you put in, the better outcome you get. It's very financially motivating. You get the point. But it becomes very obsessive, as I can become in a lot of other facets of my life. You can be very obsessed with that paycheck, with the idea of landing that deal and getting that paycheck, with the idea of getting that deal and getting that paycheck, with seeing all these people in your organization getting those paychecks. It's like you get really obsessed with these ideas of being better than you already are. And that can oftentimes be a very great culture. But sometimes as a type A person, you have to figure out, okay, why am I doing this? Why am I here? How much longer can this motivate me? How much longer can I motivate myself? What am I motivated by? And kind of do little checks on what is like truly motivating you in your career right now. Because I tell my friends this, and my sister would tell me this, is because she really struggled with justifying why she did sales in her career. And now I understand it being a few years in, because it really isn't a life-changing career, or it's really not a life-changing job. Like, we're not saving lives, I always like to say. So for her, she really felt that she wanted to do a job that was purposeful and more aligned to who she is. But she realized with mentorship and her life coach that it's okay to do a job that maybe isn't super fulfilling to who you are and representative of who you are as a person, but it provides for the life and the time flexibility and time freedom and financial freedom that you want out of your life. And that's enough justification for you. Versus also great for those people who do have a job that aligns to their interests. But I do tell my friends this, because we're still in early stages of all of our careers. And you really want to have 2 of like 4 things. You either want to have great relationships with your coworkers and people who you admire, and working with people who can really help accelerate your career. You either want to be making a lot of money. Who doesn't want to make a lot of money? You're weird if you don't. You either want to have a lot of career progression, like you see the path up to success, which also can align to making more money, but that there is exciting career growth at your organization. And then you also could have a sense of purpose behind your work. Say you work in law, and that's something that you've dreamt about being since you were a tiny kid, or you are super motivated by the environmental work that you're doing. You may not make a lot of money, but you are helping install solar panels on all of the buildings in New York, and that really gets you going and excited. And I think having 2 of any of those 4, why not? It's just one, that's not anchoring you enough. That's not sticky enough. You need to have at least 2 that can anchor you into your current position. And then even as an exercise, kind of ranking out of all those 4, like what out of a career that you're not in right now, how would you rank relationships, career progression, money, and purpose out of a career? what comes first, what comes last, and why. But the reason I say make a lot of money, it's more just because that's a huge motivator in my career. And with that comes obsession with those things. With that comes the comparison as a type A person, to be comparing myself to that person who did that, who got that deal, or who got that promotion, or who got that company recognition. I want to get there, and then I get there, and then I don't celebrate that. And that's a huge issue I have with myself, is celebrating the small wins, celebrating the big wins. I'm always on to the next best thing. I have a really hard time slowing down and recognizing how far I've come. But an exercise that I do that I've shared with you guys before is sometimes when I'm moving at such a fast clip, I will think to myself, on a more micro level, my future self will thank me by doing the dishes tonight and just getting it done and dusted, by mopping the floor. I can only think of laundry and chores list. By planning this, by sending that link, by putting together this brief, my future self will thank me. But sometimes then I get to that future self the next morning, and I'm like, all right, I checked that off the to-do list. What can I fill in place of that? Rather than being like, wow, thank you, Faith. That was amazing. Like, you really made my morning so much easier. So celebrating that. And then on a macro level, I try to do an exercise of thinking like my future self would look back, my 30-year-old self would look back on 26-year-old Faith. My 36-year-old self would look back on 26-year-old Faith and be like, how could you not? I can just imagine myself shaking myself, like, how could you not love your life so much? Like, look around, like, you live in such a beautiful neighborhood, you have such a wonderful, loving relationship, you have a great job that challenges you, that rewards you, you have great colleagues. Yes, it's remote, but like, you are recognized and celebrated in your company, and you're learning, and you have great friendships. Like, what helps me slow down is thinking of my older self, like shaking myself and being like, what the heck? Like, what are you thinking? You should love your life. Like, not saying that my 36-year-old self is going to be unsatisfied. I'll hopefully even be happier than I am now, and I see that for myself, but it allows for a point of like reflection and introspection in your life, self-actualization, to recognize that, okay, like, yeah, I'm moving really fast, but there are moments where it really is important to slow down. And then the last part is number 7, I think it is I really like to do things on my own, which is great. I'm a total DIY girl, but I tend to get upset if the outcome, I tend to like get upset if the control, if it's not done by me, and I get really hypercritical of things. And that falls in line with the vacation planning, with the friend gatherings, with, like, say we all go out for a birthday dinner and there's a group of like 15 of us and we want to like bar hop after. Immediately in my head, I'm like, that's a huge red flag. We're not going to be able to go anywhere. I'm just going to have to go straight home. But I'm a good sport. I go along, go with the flow. And then before we know it, we're all taking a taxi back or Uber back to our apartments because we couldn't get anywhere after our dinner reservation because somebody didn't plan accordingly. So I really like to do things on my own. Also, just ridiculous things I do is, one time, like, this is how freaking motivated, but like like toxically motivated and self-motivate and like just crazy I can get, is when I moved to this apartment, I would still send packages accidentally, or it would just be sent there to my old apartment that was like almost a mile away. One day I'd gotten a spray tan, and after I got my spray tan, it was near my old apartment, so I was like, okay, I'll go pick up my package, which was a speaker. I thought it was going to be a small speaker. This speaker was like 30 pounds. I went to pick up my speaker. It was summer, so like sometimes we would get the torrential downpours. I went from my spray tan to my old apartment, realized it was a very heavy package, was so determined. I was like, I came here, I'm going to pick that package up, and I'm going to walk it home. I knew I didn't want to Uber because I didn't want to spend more money rewarding my stupidity of sending this speaker to my old apartment. And also I was like, I just hate spending money on Ubers. It's like one of my non-negotiables. So I'm walking home with the speaker. It starts torrential downpouring. Get an Uber. Pull over, Faith. Make it easy. Don't walk. Your spray tan is literally sliming off of your body. No, I'm walking. That fucking speaker was on my head. It was crushing my skull. Purely, it was squashing my noggin. And I walked all the way home. Literally, my whole spray tan washed off. I wasted the amount of money I would have, way more money I would have if I just Ubered. But I was so determined. I was so DIY that I let it cloud my vision to just take a fucking Uber and make my life easier. So I'll spare you more details. I have even crazier stories about how like psychotic I can be, but and I entertain myself, and I do find ways to laugh at myself later on. But anyways, that last one being I like to do things on my own, but I tend to be very hypercritical and stubborn is a great one. Anyhow, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you laughed or at least resonated to one of my points. Love you, and I will see you next Sunday before my birthday. I'm going to Turks and Caicos with my BFFs, and I'm very excited. Okay, bye guys.